Welcome back to Learn SKN, and today we're continuing to look at the May-June 2023 Agricultural Science Paper 2. Last video we looked at questions 1 and 2, and so today we're going to look at question 3, and we're going to see what it deals with. It deals with it's the start of section 2, and so we're looking at soil and crop production and that area, right? So we're gonna drop the other video. Hopefully, we can get to drop some other videos before the exam. Maybe not, but we'll still try. But in the meantime, to find out whether we get to drop them, you will like and subscribe, hit the bell so you know if and when those drop. So let's just jump into it one time. One recent visit to Timothy's hillside farm in a hilly area in your country, Farmer Timothy told your class that topography is a key factor affecting soil fertility in the area. First question, define the term soil fertility. So we don't have to look too far. Our textbook, our agricultural science textbook, tells us exactly what soil fertility is. Soil fertility refers to the productive capacity of a soil in which the soil conditions, nutrient supplies, and availability are favorable for the growth of crop plants. Again, soil fertility refers to the productive capacity of a soil in which the soil conditions, nutrient supply, and availability are favorable for the growth of crop plants. Full stop. That's soil fertility, 2 marks, 1 time. Alright, second one. Describe 2 effects of topography on the fertility of the soil on Timothy's hillside farm. And of course we know that soil fertility can be affected by multiple factors, but they're speaking specifically to topography. And so topography speaks to the sloping of the land, right? The degree to which the land is sloping. And so we know it's a hillside farm, and already we know that it's going to impact the fertility in a negative manner, right? Soil fertility affected by topography for the most part in a negative manner. And so we know that because of topography, erosion is going to be more prevalent. So erosion is a problem, right? So describe 2 effects. Erosion, because it's a hillside, the soil is going to be eroded easier, and so of course you're going to lose nutrients when you're losing some of the soil. So that's one. And next one is the runoff. Because it's a hillside, naturally in rainfall, there'll be a lot of runoff because of the slope of the hill. And so if there's runoff, then therefore nutrients gone with that hampers the soil fertility. And next one is that the depth of the soil, how deep the soil goes. Because you're on a hillside, normally hillside has more shallow soil. And so if it's shallow, it cannot hold as much nutrients as deeper soil in the valley area. And so there's less access to nutrients because of the shallow nature of the soil. So that's the next problem in terms of impact. Of course, again, topography speaks to the slope, and so because of the slope, you might not be able to use certain land management practices, right? Imagine you just go, you put down the fertilizer, and therefore rain come, whatever comes, fertilizer wash away, fertilizer gone, right? So you're not able to use all the practices that you wish to use because you're on a hillside. So that is very much impacted, right? They only asked for 2, and so I gave you numerous ones, and so we can use those to answer that question for the 2 marks. All right, other than topography, state 1 factor that affects soil fertility. Back to our textbook, right? Soil fertility is affected by climate, topography, but it's other than topography, soil factors such as physical and chemical condition of the soil, and the nature of the parent material, as well as your soil management and fertilizer practices. So all those would impact soil fertility, right? It's a 1 marker, so they just said to just state 1. And so we gave you more than 1 that you can state. They didn't actually explain or outline, they said just state. So we got that one down. Next question. Farmer Timothy is a progressive farmer and wants to ensure that he uses the correct cropping system to improve and or maintain soil fertility on his farm. describe 2 possible cropping systems that farmer Timothy can use to maintain soil fertility on his farm. Again, our handy dandy trusty textbook has the answers for us. If you scroll down, look at this. Methods or techniques of improving and maintaining soil fertility. Then they have cropping systems. You have crop rotation, cover crops, intercropping, multi-cropping. So all you have to do now is explain how much they ask for again. Explain 2 of them. Right? So let's say we look at crop rotation. Alright. Crop rotation speaks to planting different types of crops in a sequential manner so that the crops can add certain nutrients to the soil and so the soil doesn't get exhausted. So when you plant based on the rotation, you can put back nutrients in the soil using the different type of crops, and you also restrict the amount of certain nutrients that are extracted from the soil, so you give it a chance to build up more of that particular nutrient. For example, we all know that if we plant legumes in the soil, it's going to replenish the nitrogen in the soil, legumes. And then you plant a leafy crop that would use that nitrogen. But if you keep planting leafy crops all the time, you know it's going to exhaust the soil because you're not putting back the nitrogen into the soil, right? So that's an example there of how crop rotation can assist in maintaining soil fertility. It prevents the soil from getting exhausted by one crop taking out the same nutrients all the time. So that's one, crop rotation. Of course, cover crops. Using cover crops, meaning that you are protecting the surface of the soil from the elements, from the wind, from the rain. So that way you reduce erosion. Because we know if there's erosion, that means the nutrients are being washed away. And so cover crops can be used to protect the soil from getting all the nitrogen and the nutrients and everything washed away. So part of cover crops. So that's 2. Intercropping, a very similar way of the 2 above, because sometimes you can plant crops together, one putting certain things in the soil, one taking it out, and so there's that synergy where they feed off of each other, right? Even as far as some of these, something you may plant a taller crop with a shorter crop, and so that taller crop would protect the land from, again, the elements, from wind, from water, to washing away the nutrients. So that helps. And then the shorter crop now will be able to utilize those nutrients more efficiently instead of wasting, right? Also prevents some of the weeds. Some of them can prevent weeds from growing, right? Because weeds are one of the problems that takes nutrients from the soil, because the plants are competing with the weeds for nutrients and for water and those kind of things. So when you put more crops in that area, prevent some of the weeds from popping up and that kind of thing. Even with cover crops, some cover crops prevent weeds also from popping up. The weeds are not going to fight and take out the nutrients, more nutrients that are needed. So that's how some of those cropping systems can assist in helping with soil erosion, for soil fertility. So a lot of the points of the cropping system, some of them would help to, of course, stimulate the activities of insects, of microbial organisms in the soil. So all of this would add to the fertility of the soil, right? Even when the leaves drop, the leaves rotten, and they go back to the soil, that's some green manure right there. So you have all of that being, working together in these cropping systems to help to improve the overall fertility of the soil, right? Like I said, with intercropping, you might want to plant a legume and something else. Legume put in the nitrogen, something else use the nitrogen. That kind of balance right there. So all these cropping systems can help with the fertility of the soil. So you choose 2, you explain them, and they get you 4 easy marks. All right, the last one. Other than using cropping systems, identify one additional method that farmer Timothy can adopt to improve and or maintain soil fertility on his farm. We don't have to go too far. Look at all the others right there. You have cultural practices like molding, tillage, drainage, irrigation, mulching, adding soil amendments, manure, fertilizer, compost, organic matter, liming material. Of course, again, to prevent soil erosion, again, you can use other things other than the cropping system. You can use the actual mulching that ground cover as they call it. You can do barriers, you can do windbreaks, you can do the contour farming, plowing, sorry, those kind of things, right? So those are other ways you can help to maintain the fertility, improve and maintain the fertility of the soil. So easy like that. Question 3 is done. 10 easy marks, and that is that. Question 4, right? The figure in the diagram shows a typical plant cell. State the name of the part labeled X in figure 1. State one main function of the part labeled X, right? So let's just jump into the plant cell. So the arrow is pointing specifically to this part. So this whole thing is the nucleus, right? This whole thing is the nucleus, but they are pointing to a part within the nucleus. So that part is the nucleus, right? Not the nucleus, the nucleus. And so that's the part inside of the nucleus. And one main function is to, of course, make and produce RNA, right? That's part of the, because the nucleus is a part of cell division to help the plant reproduce and that kind of thing, right? And so there's DNA, there's RNA, and so the nucleus is part of RNA creation. So yes, apart from that, it's also a part where the ribosomes and everything are assembled. So at the end of the day, it helps, it's a part of the nucleus, and we know the nucleus is all about cell division, and it houses the DNA and the chromosomes to create new plants, right? So those are the overarching functions of the nucleus and the nucleus that they are highlighting right here. All right, state the type of cell division that occurs in the reproductive organs in plants. So state the type of cell division that occurs in the reproductive organs in plants, the type of cell division. And so we have the answer outlined right here, right? In meiosis, gametes or sex cells are formed in the reproductive organ. Nucleus of each gamete has half the number of chromosomes as in the parent cell. When fertilization occurs, the zygote has the correct number of chromosomes restored. So in the reproductive organs, you have what we call meiosis. This is a mitosis up here. Down here is meiosis, right? Meiosis. That happens in the reproductive organs. All right, B. Many thin-skinned tropical crops cannot be easily exported because they are damaged during handling and shipping. As a result, the Regional Agricultural Research and Development Institute has been working with farmers to develop a new variety of hot peppers for export. The plant breeder crosses a purebred thick-skin hot pepper with a purebred thin-skin pepper, where capital T, keep those in mind, right? Capital T represents the alleles for the thick skin, and a common T represents the alleles for a thin skin. So we're saying here that the thick skin is the dominant gene because that's the capital letter, and the thin skin is the recessive gene. So keep those in mind as we go further. So the big T dominant, the small t recessive. So they say state the genotype of the parent plant. State the genotype of the parent plant. So jumping back to our book, we have a genotype, phenotype. When we write down the combinations of alleles for a particular characteristic, we refer to it as the genotype, as it is described the genetic makeup of the particular organism. So a big R. So you just use what we just focus on the T. So when you see R, you put T. So big R, and big R, small r, and so in this case, big T, genotype, big T, small t, genotype, and small t, genotype. So just so we see it highlighted here in the book. So what you're gonna put now so state the genotype of the parents. So the thick is gonna be 2 capital T's, right? The thick skin, because it is T, is going to be 2 capital T's, right, for the thick skin, and for the thin skin is going to be 2 common T's. So the thick is 2 capital and the thin is 2 common T's. So right, those are the genotypes of the parents. So for the thick skin, you put the 2 capital T's, and for the thin skin, you put the 2 capital T's. Right, that's the best answer for that particular one given the information that we have. All right, state the genotype of the offsprings of this cross. Show all workings. Document. All right, so forgive the drawing I have here. I'm doing it in Microsoft Paint, right? So up here you have the small ones for the thin. Here you have the big ones for the thick. This is what I call a Punnett square. And so what happens now is that you can only get, all of them going to be the same. All of them going to be big R, small r, right? Because you bring across 1, bring down 1. So you bring across 1, put the big one right here. Bring down 1, small. Same thing here. You bring across 1, bring down 1, small. Again, bring across 1. That's a big one. Bring down 1, R. Bring across 1. Bring down 1, R. So that's what you're going to get for the offspring. All of them are going to be, oh, I use R. It's supposed to be T. Sorry. It's supposed to be T. But you understand the point, right? It's supposed to be T, right? Just remember the R came from the textbook. It's supposed to be T, right? So just understand that that's how we're using this T, right? So wherever I put the small thing, you get the gist, right? You put T, right? So that's how it's supposed to be. So at the end of the day, all 4 are going to be big T, small t, big T, small t, big T, small t, big T, small t. Right? That's what you're going to get for that particular question. You're going to get the, using the Punnett square, you're going to get the genotypes of the offspring in this cross. Right? So that's what you're going to get. Suppose based on our workings, right? And we already know what is a recessive and what is a dominant gene. We know the big one is the dominant, the small one is the recessive. So therefore, if we are saying all 4 offspring are going to have the big T in front, meaning thick, right? Thick skin, then we can very well say all offspring are going to have a phenotype of thick skin. So none will have a phenotype of thin skin. They will all have a phenotype of thick skin. So determine how many. All will have thin skin. Sorry, all will have thick skin and none will have thin skin based on the math. Alright, so the last question of this section. Some vegetable seeds that are sold in an agricultural shop have been produced by commercial seed producing companies using genetic engineering. So there's one benefit farmers may get from growing genetically engineered crops. Alright, cool. So one benefit, of course, that they can be resistant to certain diseases based on the genetic engineering. So they're going to be resistant. So your yield is going to be higher. And that also means that you're going to be spending less money on pest control, right? You don't have to buy much of the herbicides, pesticides, etc. because they are resistant to certain mold, mildews, those kind of things. Another benefit is that you can get the vegetable just how you want it in terms of size, color, sweetness, right? You can alter it to get it in the perfect shape, size, however you want it. You can basically get it in that way. And so you already know what to expect based on the genetic modification. So apart from disease resistance, we're talking about weather resistant because some genetically modified seeds are drought tolerant, some are flood tolerant. So they can be submerged for a longer period without dying. They can take certain amount of heat without dying because of that genetically modified genes and everything in that particular seed type. So there are some benefits to the being genetically modified. One again, disease resistant. And next one is weather resistant. And next one is, of course, longer lifespan. And next one is you get it in the shape, taste, whether we can alter the shape, taste of how we want it. And next one, you can save money because they don't require as much herbicide, pesticides, and fertilizers and those kind of things. So all those are benefits you get from genetically engineered crops. Alright, so that's it for section 2. Right, that's it for section 2. 2 questions. A lot of persons asking about the textbook. This is the recommended textbook as far as the school that I teach. The Agricultural Science for CSEC examination, second edition, by Roland and Pearson. Right, that's the one that is recommended. And so that's it for that one. Alright, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Stay tuned to see if we can drop question 5 and 6.